There's a man who lives in a modest suburban house with faded blue siding and a slightly overgrown lawn. He drives a 10-year-old sedan. He shops at the local grocery store. He mows his own grass. His neighbors know him as the retired consultant who keeps to himself. What they don't know, what nobody on this street knows, is that he is worth over $2 billion. $2 billion. That's not just wealth. That's generational, life-altering, reality-bending money. Money that could buy private islands, penthouse apartments, supercars, and the kind of lifestyle most people can only dream about. But he doesn't own any of those things. He sits in a worn armchair and drinks coffee from a ceramic mug, and he has never been happier. His name isn't important. What matters is how he got here. He wasn't a tech founder. He wasn't a celebrity CEO. He started a logistics company in his 20s, boring, unglamorous work. Moving things from one warehouse to another, solving problems that nobody writes articles about, but he solved them well, and quietly. Over 2 decades, he built something essential, something that worked so efficiently that larger companies started paying attention. One day, in his late 40s, he signed a document that transferred ownership of everything he'd built. The sale wasn't announced. There was no press release. No photo of him holding an oversized check, just a signature. And suddenly, he was worth more money than he could ever spend. Most people, when they receive that kind of money, change everything. They upgrade. They move to a gated community. They buy cars that cost more than most people's homes. He did the opposite. He moved from a gated community to a normal street. He traded the mansion for a modest house with a cracked driveway. He didn't downsize. He escaped. The first few months were euphoric. For the first time in years, he could walk into a grocery store without being recognized. No one asked for his advice. No one tried to pitch him a business idea. No one looked at him and saw dollar signs. He was just a man buying cereal, and that simple act, being invisible, felt more luxurious than any private jet. He started reconnecting with something he'd lost: ordinary human interaction. He would sit in coffee shops, read the newspaper, and watch people. Not as a billionaire looking down, but as a person among other people. He discovered something remarkable. When people don't know you have money, they treat you like a human being. They give you honest advice. They disagree with you without hesitation. They like you, or dislike you, based on who you actually are. And that, he realized, was what he'd been missing his entire adult life. He started attending neighborhood barbecues. He made friends who had no idea about his net worth. They talked about mortgages, school districts, the price of eggs. He listened. He laughed. He discovered the value of being unremarkable. He could drive anywhere without being followed. He could park his car on any street without attracting attention. He could walk through any city and remain invisible. For most billionaires, anonymity is a fantasy. For him, it was reality. And it was the greatest luxury money could buy. He started mentoring young entrepreneurs, anonymously of course. He would listen to their ideas, ask sharp questions, and offer guidance. They never knew his name. They never knew his net worth. They just knew he was wise, and that was enough. In fact, it was better, because the advice he gave was judged on its merit, not its source. He used his wealth silently. Through blind trusts, he funded scholarships. He supported local businesses. He helped families pay medical bills. The recipients never knew where the money came from. There was no gratitude, no recognition, no pressure to perform or thank him publicly. And that was exactly the way he wanted it. But secrecy comes with a cost. There were nights when the loneliness was unbearable. He couldn't tell his neighbors his real story. He couldn't share his triumphs or his fears. Every new friendship came with a lie. He was a retired consultant. That was the cover. And after 10 years, even he was starting to believe it. The hardest moments were the ones where he watched people he cared about struggle. A neighbor with mounting medical debt. A friend's child unable to afford college. He could solve each of these problems with a single phone call, but he couldn't make that call. Not without revealing everything. So he sat in silence. And he carried the guilt of knowing he could help, but choosing not to. He lost some friends when they discovered the truth. Not because they were greedy, but because they felt betrayed. They had shared their financial struggles with him. They had cried about their mortgages. And he had listened, silently knowing he could write a check and erase all their problems. They couldn't trust him anymore. And maybe they were right. He started walking at night, alone on the quiet suburban streets, under the warm glow of streetlights. He would think about his identity. Was he a billionaire who lived like a middle-class man? Or was he a middle-class man who happened to have billions? After 10 years, he wasn't sure anymore. The money had stopped feeling real. It was just numbers on a screen. Abstract, distant. He would occasionally look at his portfolio and feel nothing. No excitement, no fear, no attachment. It was simply there, like a high score in a video game he'd stopped playing. He had achieved what most people dream of: financial freedom. And he had discovered the uncomfortable truth. Financial freedom doesn't fix the parts of you that are broken. He looked out at the distant skyline, at the towers where his former peers lived. They were visible from his modest house, a reminder of the life he'd left behind. And he realized something most people never understand. Those towers are not symbols of success. They're cages, golden cages built from status, expectation, and the constant need to prove you're worth what you have. He had escaped. And that was his real achievement. He's learned the one thing that money cannot buy: The freedom to be ordinary. The freedom to walk through life without being seen as a bank account.